In late autumn, the Mountaineering Club organized a climb up the far-famed Gwigik Mountain. The mountain is famous for its treacherous terrain and mysterious legends. There was a couple in the club who were very close, Lena and Paul. Paul is the president of the hiking club and Lena is his right-hand man. This time, they joined in, hoping to conquer the mountain together, which was thought to be unconquerable. On that day, the weather was sunny and everything seemed to be going well. But when they arrived at the foot of the mountain and were ready to start climbing, the sky suddenly became cloudy, the wind got stronger, and the temperature plummeted. Members of the climbing club expressed concern, but Paul insisted that this was a rare challenge and that they should not give up so easily. He said, "We've been preparing for this for so long, we can't possibly give up just because of a bit of bad weather, so hang in there, everyone." However, Lena was a little worried, and she urged, "Paul, the weather is really bad. Why don't we wait for the weather to improve before we go up the mountain?" But Paul's determination didn't waver at all. He patted Lena's shoulder and said gently, "Just stay and watch over the camp. We'll be back soon." Unable to do anything else, Lena had to stay at the camp and watch them disappear into the thick fog. For the next 3 days, the weather never improved, but instead got worse. With wild storms and rain, Lena's heart became more and more uneasy. On the third night, Lena looked out of her tent at the storm and thought to herself, maybe it's the weather that's holding them up. She kept comforting herself in her mind, hoping that they would return safely. Day after day, time quickly came to the 7th day. That evening, the members of the climbing team finally returned to the camp. Lena excitedly greeted them, but soon realized that one person was missing: Paul. She hurriedly asked, "Where's Paul? Why didn't he come back with you guys?" With heavy faces, everyone whispered to her, "Lena, I'm sorry, Paul was tragically killed on the first day of the summit attack." Lena immediately felt the sky spinning, almost unsteady on her feet. She could not accept this cruel fact. Seeing that she was agitated, everyone was busy persuading her, "Lena, we also came back in time for the first 7 days, because legend has it that the souls of the dead will come back to visit their loved ones on the first 7 days. Maybe Paul will come back for you too." In the dead of night, everyone formed a circle, placing Lena in the center, and waited for midnight with mixed emotions. Time passed by, and a tense and eerie atmosphere filled the air. Close to 12 o'clock midnight, a sudden gust of cold wind blew by, as if it brought some ominous omen. Just then, Lena suddenly heard a familiar sound of footsteps, and she tremblingly raised her head to see a blood-covered figure slowly walking from the thick fog. It was none other than Paul. Paul approached step by step, his eyes empty and cold. He violently grabbed Lena's hand and whispered, "Come with me." Lena screamed in terror and struggled desperately, but Paul was incredibly strong and practically dragged her out of the room. In fear and desperation, Lena screamed with all her might, "Paul, what's wrong with you? Why are you doing this to me?" Paul whispered, "Lena, I'm alive." There was indeed a mountain disaster on the first day of the attack on the summit. Everyone died and I was the only one who survived. Lena froze, unable to believe what her ears were hearing. She looked around and saw that those former companions were all pale and had strange eyes. An extremely horrible feeling suddenly welled up in her heart, almost devouring her. She struggled and asked, "Is what you say true? But why did you guys tell me that Paul is dead?" Just then, Paul suddenly let go of her hand and said with a pained expression on his face, "Lena, believe me, I'm really still alive. These people, they are no longer alive." Lena's eyes widened as she looked around at these once familiar faces and instantly realized everything. A chill rose from her feet and she shivered. She looked at Paul and burst into tears. "Paul, what are we going to do?" Paul pulled her into his arms and whispered, "We have to get out of here quickly, or they won't let us go." At that moment, the people surrounding them began to show strange smiles and slowly approached them. Lena's heart was beating like a drum and she knew she had to trust Paul. She nodded her head, grabbed Paul's hand tightly, and the two of them fought their way out of the camp. They ran wildly through the darkness of the mountains, the people behind them getting closer and closer, with eerie laughter and whispers in their ears. Lena was overwhelmed with fear and despair, but she clung to Paul's hand and followed him with determination. Finally, they ran out of the forest and into an open field. Paul stopped and panted, "We're safe. They won't come after us again." Lena jumped into Paul's arms and burst into tears. "Paul, what are we going to do?" Paul stroked her hair and said firmly, "We must call the police as soon as possible and let them handle this. There's something really wrong with Haunted Hills, and we can't put anyone else in this kind of danger." Over the next few days, Lena and Paul returned to the city and explained the whole incident to the police in detail. The police investigated and found that Ghost Valley Mountain did have a number of records of people going missing, but no one had ever come back alive to tell of the experience. Lena and Paul's survival became an unsolved mystery, but they knew that what they had experienced was real. This horrible experience was deeply imprinted in their hearts, and they cherished each other all the more for it, vowing never to venture into those mysterious and dangerous places again. Whenever it was late at night, Lena would still occasionally think about that night, but she knew that Paul would always be by her side, no matter what.